Hey there, thrill seeker. Do you want to understand how chases work in Daggerheart? You've come to the right place. And lucky for you, it's only going to take me about 30 seconds to explain chases, but understanding why they work that way and how it can be applied to other games is where things get interesting. Because this one little game mechanic has the potential to completely change the way you play tabletop role-playing games. Look, I know that sounds like I'm hyping up a turd just to get clicks, but I really mean it. This is a big deal.
I'm kind of a big deal.
I'm talking about countdowns. I've heard people call them progress clocks on steroids. I'll cover all that later in the video, but first, let's get to what you came for, chases. Take a look at the stat block for the bustling marketplace environment in this one part, sticky fingers. A thief tries to steal something from a PC. The PC must succeed on an instinct roll to notice the thief or lose an item of the GM's choice as the thief escapes to a close distance. To retrieve the stolen item, the PCs must complete a progress countdown 6 to chase down the thief before the thief completes a consequence countdown 4 and escapes to their hideout. Don't worry if not all that made sense. This is describing a chase, and I'm going to show you exactly how it works. When running it, the first thing we do is pick a die type. The larger the die, the longer the chase. Let's use the sticky finger scenario, so we're describing a short chase across a crowded market, and we'll use a D6. And we use two D6s because one is offense and one is defense, the pursuer and the pursued. Actually, let's call them the chaser or party and runner or NPC. So one of our D6s we assign to the chaser, and we set that D6 to the highest number of 6. The other D6 we use for our runner. Now in chase scenes, the runner always has a head start, right? So the runner's die we set to 5 or 4 or 3 depending on how much of a lead the runner has over the chaser. Lower is more. Now we start the scene, and this runs like a skill challenge from 4E D&D. A player says what their PC wants to do in the chase, then makes an action roll. Depending on that roll, then either the chaser or the runner advances by counting down their die. Then it passes to a new player to do something else, and the actions continue until one side wins because their die ticks down to 0. Here's how the book example goes. The thief has a decent head start, so we set their D6 to 3. The warrior, PC1, asks to go first, getting up on the market stall tents to run over the top rather than pushing through the crowds. The GM calls for an agility roll against the thief's difficulty of 15. PC1 rolls a success with hope, so the GM ticks the party's progress countdown from 6 to 4. This represents PC1 gaining on the thief and helping the group catch up by calling out a quicker route through the crowd. Next, PC2 has an idea. He conjures an illusion of a runaway horse charging across the thief's path. PC2 makes a spellcast roll against difficulty 15 but rolls a failure with fear. The GM describes the thief detecting the illusion at the last moment and ducking through a busy crowd that blocks the party's path. The GM ticks the thief's consequence countdown from 3 to 1 as the thief makes it to far range away from the party. The thief is eluding their sight and in real danger of getting away. If the consequence countdown ticks down one more time, the thief will be gone. It's simple, right? Your players will provide the story beats based on their actions, then the bad guy reacts to those choices. And if this feels too gamey, you don't have to show the players the dice or even tell them the scores. You can present it narratively and keep the dice hidden behind your GM screen or write the numbers in your notebook instead of using actual dice. But let's talk a little more about countdowns in Daggerheart because they're the key to everything. Countdowns are based on progress clocks from Blades in the Dark. In that game, they're often used to track long-term downtime projects or track enemy movements and goals. This is going to suck all the fun out of them, but progress clocks are basically a project management tool. Why is that important? Because you're going to have tasks and goals in TTRPGs, and keeping track of them is necessary. Quick side tangent, video games are often sorely lacking in project management tools. That's one reason why I was so in love with Horizon Zero Dawn in 2017. Because in that game, you have your main quests, but you also need to do things like hunt for fish bones or source raccoon hides to craft upgrades for your gear. So you could look at your inventory and go, okay, I need to collect one more fish bone, then I can upgrade my outfit satchel. And then here's the cool thing, you can add hunt for fish bones to your active quest list by turning it into a job. Zero Dawn lets you make and track custom objectives, and it was really helpful. I wish more games did this. Anyway, back to countdowns. Daggerheart's claim to fame is taking the best parts of other systems and smoothly Frankensteining them into one rule set.
That's Frankenstein.
And what they've done here is to take Blade's progress clocks, merge them with 4E D&D skill challenges, and the result is countdowns. I've said before that my problem with actual 4E skill challenges as written is they're too prescriptive. Daggerheart's countdowns open them up so it allows players and GMs to take whatever actions they want while also keeping the math low maintenance by only using 2 competing dice to track the conflict. There are 2 types of countdowns, standard and dynamic. Standard countdowns mostly use 1 die and are for anything that requires a timed event or timed activation. In Daggerheart, there's no initiative in combat, so you don't have the concept of layer actions on initiative count 20 like D&D. You also don't have the concept of introducing a second wave of enemies at the beginning of round 3 or 4. There's no rounds in Daggerheart combat, so you use countdowns if you want a second wave. At the beginning of battle, the GM can start a countdown, for example a D8. Now we set the die to 8 behind our GM screen. Every time a PC does an action that requires a roll, we tick that D8 down 1 number. And when it hits 0, meaning ticking down from 1, then our second wave of enemies arrives. And if we're planning a third wave, restart that countdown to 8, which is called a looping countdown. Daggerheart suggests long-term countdowns to track villain goals and progress. A long countdown usually ticks down every time the party long rests, so like once each day. For example, let's say we're running a game and we decide Baron Stubenfester is planning to launch a siege against King Larpenheimer's castle. Baron Stubenfester will need 14 days of game time to ready his troops to begin the siege. So we set a countdown to the number 14, and every time the party takes a long rest, we tick that siege countdown 1 number lower. When it hits 0, the Baron has prepared his troops and the siege begins. Tracking enemy plans and timelines this way makes them so much easier, trust me. Stay on top of your countdowns and you'll see your prep time shrink. Here's another quick example. Say a PC gets bitten by a werewolf. You decide it's 7 days to the next full moon and now tick down that counter every long rest until showtime. Dynamic countdowns can tick up or down depending on the results of the player actions. Our chase sequence is like a dynamic countdown because there's more than one possible outcome. These are like skill challenges because it's about succeeding a certain number of times before failing a certain number of times. If we use the example of Baron Stubenfester from before, that's a standard long rest countdown, but we could easily change it to a dynamic countdown if the party decides to intervene in the Baron's plans. What if on day 5, when there's 9 ticks left, the party attacks and destroys one of the Baron's supply wagons? This will delay the Baron from launching the siege because it'll take, let's say, 3 days to replace the lost supplies. So we bump that long-term siege counter number from 9 back up to 12. And now we get to the part where I explain why this is so universally useful. Because you can use countdowns in any situation that requires more than one roll to resolve. You can use a countdown to quickly and easily take any group, situation, or scenario where the result is uncertain and mechanize it. Roleplay, stealth, exploration, anything. Here's an example I came up with that I call tavern vibes. Let's say the party's in a tavern and the pacing in the session is starting to drag. Maybe the players don't know what to do next and start looking to the GM to add in some conflict or narrative motion. So here's what I've done with tavern vibes. Spend a fear and tell the players, you're all noticing the vibe in this place is starting to go sour. It's getting tense. You see other tavern patrons side-eyeing you, whispering about you. Seems like the mood is turning very quickly. What do? Then you start a dynamic countdown timer, and the players will name their actions like, I'll buy a round of drinks, or I'll sing a shanty to entertain the room, or I'll try to recall an important piece of local lore to ingratiate myself with everyone, or whatever. Then the game provides guidance here about how the roll results translate to ticks. But you see the flexibility, right? You can gamify anything. Does the party need to persuade the Queen's whole court to let them have access to the Forbidden Lands? Dynamic persuasion countdown. Need to break out of a jail cell before the guard comes back? Dynamic escape countdown. Does the party need to search a crime scene to uncover clues? Dynamic investigation countdown. Need to hunt through a forest to locate a particular flower that blooms only at night? Dynamic exploration countdown. And remember our chase example? How long did it take me to prep for it? It was about 10 seconds to choose the die type and starting numbers, and then you're off and running. You know chases sometimes happen without warning, and you don't want to kill the tension by spending the next 2 minutes getting out a map and minis, measuring distances, and all that other crap. I think a narrative chase is way more intense anyway. Measuring distances is not very exciting. And since you've stuck around to the end of this video, here's a special bonus tip just for you. Daggerheart's chases blend perfectly with my other favorite chase system, Call of Cthulhu. Cthulhu uses a dot and line system to track obstacles and represent where the chaser and runner are in comparison to each other. And you can just add in a Daggerheart chase countdown too, they harmonize perfectly. Cthulhu's system handles the where, Daggerheart handles the how, symbiosis. Well, so thanks for coming to my TED Talk about how countdowns are the future of tabletop gaming. I'm GM Jim, and however you like to play, you should do it more.